My name's Adelle Onyango, and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. Thank you so much for working with the podcast. OG members, I've got nothing but love for you, and special love to everybody who was tagging us in your Spotify Wrapped posts online and your YouTube Wrapped. I didn't know there was a YouTube Wrapped, and one particular member of our community, shout out to Eve, who also came through for our final group therapy session this past Saturday. She's the one who told me YouTube has a wrapped thing. I had no idea. And she was among our top 0.1% of YouTube viewers. So I really appreciate all of you. If you're newbie here, welcome to the fam. This particular show goes out every single Monday where different Africans come through and share stories from their lived experience. And then on Wednesdays, we have the midweek teas where I break down topics that I think are going to help you on your healing journey. Our newsletter also goes out on Wednesdays. On Thursdays, we have For Mannerless Women, which is our newest baby. I say newest will be in season 3, but it started this year. And if you are on a journey as an African woman to becoming your best self, that is a must watch or listen to show. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube and follow us on Insta and TikTok. All of them links are in the show notes. However, in this episode, we're jumping into part 2 of Gachambi's story. If you've not listened to part 1, you may want to go back to the previous episode. Otherwise, you're just going to be floating, all right? In part 1, of course, we met her navigating grief, expectations, academic pressure, and just like going through this rediscovery of herself. Now, in part 2, more things come to life from traumatic, toxic workplaces, sexual harassment in the legal field, and just like the courage it takes to walk away from spaces that were really just shrinking her. Let's jump into it. 100 African stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
So we usually have a total of 9 exams. For you to pass, for you to now be admitted as an advocate, 1, you have to have passed all the 9 units, and 2, you have to undergo a pupillage program, of which it's an internship really, for like 6 months now after the exams. And I checked, I'm like, I passed 4 exams only. What do you mean 4? I had passed 4 exams, so 4 out of 9. So meaning I had 5 more exams to redo. And I cried and I called my best friend and we cried. We just cried. We spent the whole evening crying, and I told her I want to cancel my trip. She's like, don't cancel your trip, because at the end of the day, the results are here already and you've already paid for your trip. So you just go. The results are not changing right now. They're going to change when you get to redo them. And I went on that vacation. I was a bit sad because, yet again, being a high functional person, I like everything under control. And I'm not one to leave things. I'm like, why would I leave my grades here and go have fun? But then I wasn't leaving my grades. You carry your grades with you. If it's 4 passes, I was carrying them with me. So I went and came back, and now the following, what I did, I remarked one of the units. Since it was close to the pass mark, I passed. So now I was at 5. So 5 out of 9. So I only had four more exams. Yeah, 4 more exams. And I kept on repeating. Now this is through 2022, 2023, till the last time I did the exams, and I passed in July 2023. And this is where I usually know that God's story for you, it's just for you, and there's no other way that it's going to happen apart from the way God has set it out for you. Because maybe if I'd passed that ago, the outcome of life wouldn't have been the same. Because in between the failure, I even learned to appreciate the 4. You see, you're like, okay, I've failed, but I've passed 4, you see. But if I hadn't failed even any unit, I wouldn't have known the impact of failure. I wouldn't have seen it as if I did a good job. And in between the transitioning of retaking all these units, I did study hard. And I remembered who Jambi was before all this. I remember, Jambi, once upon a time, you were a smart girl. You used to sit down and to get A's and whatever. You used to be top of the class. So there's nothing that has changed. Imagine. You can remove all the trauma aside and remember who you are, even if you're going to pick it up once you leave the door. But remember who you are. You're a smart girl. And I locked in and I finished the exams and now transitioned into work, just a bit and bit here and there, just trying to navigate this legal space, of which it's very hard, by the way. It's very hard. It's very hard. So shout out to whoever is doing their own thing, just keeping on, because even in the legal space here in Kenya, I don't know about other countries, we're often told that we have to stick to one line. You see, that after becoming an advocate, you have to be a litigant. After becoming this, you have to do this. But then, who said that all of us have to go to Milimani? Who said that all of us have to be sports lawyers? Who said that all of us have to? There's so many things we can do as lawyers, and I feel as if most people are not vocal about it. Maybe, maybe not, or maybe I haven't done my research well, but let's bring more conversations about how you can diversify this career, because the table is big enough for all of us to eat, but you don't have to be on the same table. You could be seated in a 4x6 table. I could be seated in a 6x4 table, and it's okay. It doesn't take the fact that you're a lawyer. So navigating the legal space had been hard by then, because I wasn't even sure that I wanted to go to the route that people had said you have to go. I've always wanted to be a humanitarian lawyer. For me, anything to do with humanitarian law, call me even at 3 a.m. I'll wake up. But then now, knowing that the corporate space, the way I'm telling you, the legal space has been set up, you have to accept maybe particular jobs which you know for real, they're not in line with whatever God's purpose is for you. But you'll just take it. You're like, okay, bills have to be paid and all that. So that had been me by then. And I got into volunteering a lot. In NGOs, just waking up and seeing an application, putting an application for volunteers. I did get a lot of volunteering jobs. Now this goes back to even last year during the femicide match that we had. I got a volunteering job from one of the best lady that I've met, who's like a mentor to me, and she's always encouraging me in this space. So in retrospect, I just tell lawyers, don't be afraid to even start from scratch, as long as you know this is what I'm meant to be doing. Even if you're starting on a clean slate that doesn't even equate to money, just take it. As long as you know your passion lies there, just take it. And the God who sees all of us one day will fulfill that purpose for you. So yeah, I got into this particular space of jobs. Some of them were toxic and heart-wrenching. Some of them, oh my God. There's one job that I had in 2023, and it made me hate the corporate world. That changed, of course, but it made me hate the corporate world entirely. And this was just a month or like few months before my admission. And it was the most toxic environment, with the most toxic job, with the most toxic boss. The only good thing that came out of it is just the friendship. When I tell you, friendship has grounded me all throughout my life, because I met the most loveliest ladies on there, but I was broken. I was broken at all. And I asked my God, why did you now tell me to step into a career that is not even equating to anything? And even if it's not equating to money, I'm losing myself. Like, I don't know who I am anymore. I have anxiety every single day. I can't sit and be. And funny thing is, I got fired, by the way. Let it be known that people do get fired outside here. And it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't take away the fact that you're a good person and you're good at your work. So I got fired, and months down the line, this company fell. And I told myself, that is God. That is God. That is God. I told myself, ain't no other way. This is God. So this was a few months before my admission, sometime in 2023. And according to the legal world, or according to Kenyan law, you have to do your pupillage. You do your pupillage after you're done, then get admitted once you've passed the exams. So I did my pupillage in a particular law firm somewhere in West T. And it was nice while it lasted. Finished my pupillage. Then after, there's this grace period called holding over, whereby you're just awaiting admission. You can either continue in the same firm, or you can look for another job or whatever. So on a random day, my boss comes. He's like, oh, Jambi, there's this opportunity that has come up, and I'd want you to consider it. And then I questioned him, well, what do you mean? Why do you want me to take up that job? He's like, on here where you are, yes, we can stay with you, but you're not going to grow. At the same time, you can always use all the skills you've learned in this new office. I'm like, okay, bet. And then I was scheduled for an interview on Monday. Oh, this was Friday when he told me that. So I was scheduled for an interview on Monday. So on Monday, Jambi in her suit, freshly ironed, goes to this other office in Westlands still. Westlands. So I go to this office in Westlands, and I get to this office, and it looks different. I've been to many offices, especially interviewed in many offices, but this one really caught my eye, not in a good way, by the way. I was just wondering, are we in a Netflix show, or what's about to happen here? Yeah, I walk in, then I meet this particular gentleman, and I'm sat there. Then I start prepping myself for the interview. You know the way an interview goes, you introduce yourself and all that. So after introducing myself, this guy, first of all, this man was on his phone. Even when I was doing my introduction, he was literally on his phone, and I was wondering, hapa ni wapi? Where are we? Where are we? So after I introduced myself, he just looked at me and told me, yeah, you can start today. And I was like, start today? Because normally when you do an interview, you're usually given a day to start. You could be told, come tomorrow or come the week after. But then he told me start today. I was like, okay, say less. Then I was shown where I'm supposed to sit. And I was sat there. There were no computers, no nothing. When I'm telling you guys, this place was weird. Please believe me. And when we were sat there, since we had no computers, or we weren't told to carry laptops rather, or whatever, or I wasn't told to carry my laptop, I was on my notebook, and I journaled and I journaled. And I've never journaled for that long, by the way. I was like page 5, page 10. Then after a while, we were called for a meeting. So we go for this meeting in the same office, still in the boardroom, and we started this meeting. And after this meeting, no, during the meeting, this particular boss, he pretends that he doesn't know me. By the way, he's like, "Oh," I'm jumping. He's like, "Oh, you're the new advocate," or something of the sort. Mind you, this was a recommendation call. Like, he had been told Jambi is coming there. But then he was like, acting as if he doesn't know me, or he wasn't aware, or as if I was intruding or something of the sort. Anyways, finished the meeting and went through with the day. And the first week was okay. But now the second week, I started seeing red flags. I told my mom, my heart is not okay here. Like, I don't like it here. My mom was like, she didn't impose, by the way. She just said, you just see it through, because at the end of the day, you're getting admitted this year. So just sit there and just sit through it as you await your admission. Then my mom was also of the opinion, or you can go back to your previous holding over place rather. But then I told her, I don't want to go back there. Discretion, by the way, I'm about to get into like sexual violence and all that in the workspace. So normally in the workspace, in the legal space, because I am in the legal space, I've seen girls and even men getting sexually harassed, and none of it goes in the public domain, because we are so, I don't know whether we're not used to talking about it in the legal space, or there's this protection of lawyers. I don't know what's the issue there, but many a times whereby in this particular space I got harassed, or rather the intention to sexually harass me came up. And it happened a couple of times, but I used to ignore it. But not ignorance, really. It was just like when certain intentions were being thrown at me, I used to block them. For example, maybe I could get a comment like, "Oh, I like the dress that you were wearing." I could counter it and say maybe, when are we attending court? Things like those. So I never sat through those conversations. But then this one time, it was actually very, very scary. I was in someone's office, this particular boss's office, where I used to do my holding over. And it feels weird talking about this, by the way, but who else is going to talk about these stories if not us? And when I was in this office, there's a particular file that I was meant to work on. And there's a particular cabinet as well that was below. You see, you can have a full-on cabinet, and you can have one that looks as if it's half. It looks like a console, but then it's a cabinet. So this particular boss was like, "Oh, can you just bend and take that file?" And the door was closed. I was like, "What? Why am I bending?" And then there was a seat. There was a seat next to the cabinet. I sat on the chair because now when you're sitting, you're in a better position to pull the file. And I sat because I know where I was going to bend for sure. I sat and I pulled the file and I gave it to him. And the funny thing is, even when pulling the file, there's nothing there's nothing substantial he said about the file. So meaning his intention wasn't for me to pull the file or whatever. It was just like for me to bend. And I didn't, because and I didn't want to, and it felt it's just like wrong for you to tell someone to do certain things. And after we were done, he tells me to return the file, and I still did the same thing. I sat on the chair and I opened the cabinet and I returned the file. And after that, I cried so much. I cried, I cried, I cried, I cried, I cried. And I spoke to my then partner, who comforted me, by the way. And I was to leave at that point, of which this was somewhere in December, now before the holding over here, but I didn't. One, knowing pupillage, you have to be signed for the exact documents required by school. So you have to like sign a documentation showing that you've done the pupillage program, whatever. And since we are almost closing the year, school had been closed. So the only time I could get my documents to be signed was the following year. Yeah, so it was weird. It was weird, and I didn't talk about. I talked to about it, by the way. I spoke to my friends. I spoke to my then partner, even my colleagues. I told them, and I cried and I cried and I cried. But ever since then, I just knew that sexual harassment in the workplace is very rampant. It's very rampant. Some may argue me say and may say something contrary to whatever I'm saying. Maybe I don't know. But for you to be able to say such things, it can't be out of speculation. You must have experienced certain things, even if it's not through you, through your colleague, friends, and whatever. Such stories never see the light of the day because maybe there's shame behind it, you see. And maybe, as usual, maybe you can be told that the victim is lying, or maybe she's the one who perpetrated the whole thing, of which I don't know, but it's actually sad, and people need to be more vocal about it, even in the legal space, because these are your seniors. Normally, in the legal world, whoever who's been admitted before you to the bar is your senior. So your senior can't be perpetrating you and just walking around the town or the city just freely as if they've done nothing, you see. And I know some of the stories may end up in the public domain like this one. So no wonder I put that trigger warning. But yeah, I got through it, and now back to this other job that I told you. I went for an interview and I started the same day. Hey, so I told my mom, "Hey, what's happening here? What's happening here?" My mom is like, "See it through," and I told her, "Say less, I'll see it through." So around week 2, week 3, I had gone as an in-house counsel. But then the work I was doing was not giving in-house counsel. We were busy doing world tours, going to I don't know where, going to Kiambu, going to particular cities and counties to do. It was just everything else apart from the work. Everything else apart from the work. And I asked myself, why are we not like working here? Why are we not working? And when work came in, it was very heavy. Like it was bulky work. You're being told to move the world from point A to point B and do it within an hour or something of the sort. And it got overwhelming. And it got to the point of this particular boss started questioning my character. And he started shouting at me. And to make it worse, by the way, sometimes even the people around you usually, what's it called? Enable your behavior. Because I wasn't getting shouted at by this boss alone, even with a sister who happened to be part of the organization as the CEO or something. So imagine you're getting shouted at by your boss, you're getting shouted at by the sister, by the cousin, by the neighbor. And it's at work. This is not at home, by the way. This is purely work. Why are we bringing such things on here? And even so, if I'm under you, if your boss is maybe one particular person in the family, why is the whole family coming at me? Yet it's a workplace. This is not home. And I used to cry. Trust me, I've cried. In the corporate world, I have cried. I have seen my better share of tears. And I usually tell God, may I never cry again because of my career, because you handed it over to me. You're the one who gave me. I don't want to cry. I'd rather lack than cry again, because there's nothing hurting wanting more than crying about something that, God, you selected me to be maybe an engineer, or maybe a musician, or maybe a dancer. I'm supposed to be crying tears of joy. And even though I'm crying, it's not supposed to be something that's so heart wrenching to the point of me questioning this career, you see. And I used to cry, I used to cry, I used to cry. It was just like a normal routine for me to cry. And I did stay there for 2 months, by the way. So what happened to me transitioning into getting fired? This is what happened. The 2 months had been shaky, full of tears, full of, yeah, and I was not even at my best. I was really skinny. I was really sick. My ulcers were at peak. And funny thing, a job can stipulate the hours where you're working. You could be told clocking 9 to 5. If it's a consultant thing, just an hour. For example, if it's a conference, 3 days, you see. For this thing, we were told it's an 8 to 5 or rather 9 to 5 job. But we used to leave work even at 10. At 10 p.m. or even at sometimes 11. It was just like weird working hours. And trust me, we weren't working. Like, you could clock in your 9 to 5, and then after the things you're doing, why would you call for a meeting at 6 p.m.? Why would you call for a meeting at 8 p.m.? And these are kids, these are kids. People have children, people have responsibilities, and as much as there's work, people have other things to do. You'd rather be home doing your laundry or even eating your meal and watching your favorite show. Why am I at work at like 11 and you haven't consented to that? And this is not overtime. So it's by force, you have to be there. And the lack of your attendance is also an issue. Anyway, so we used to even leave work at like 10. It was just like it was just a whole cinematic thing. You guys, when I'm telling you this is a show in in Netflix, you have to believe me. And now, the road to me getting fired on a random Friday in September, I had lost my cousin. Continue resting in peace, and we attended the burial. So there's a meeting that was supposed to be held on that morning, of which, if you're applying for a leave day or whatever, the duties of your day are quote unquote given to another person. If you usually maybe do your work, maybe you have 10 files to close or 10 files to file, then your 10 files on that day, maybe 5 of them will be given to your colleague. So the other 5, you can come and work on them maybe on Monday. Leave days as stipulated in the law. It's not something that you wake up one day and decide that, it's already in the law. So on this day, I had asked to be away from work because I was attending my cousin's burial. So in the morning, I get a call. Are you going to be in attendance of this meeting? So that boss had held a meeting and I was supposed to be there, which I said I wouldn't be there. Another colleague of mine would have been in attendance, who's also a lawyer. But then this colleague was from the other office where I was working at. So he's like, no, you need to be here. And he insisted I needed to be there. And I told him I'm not in a position to, because I'm not even in Nairobi. We were burying my cousin far away from Nairobi. And during the morning, when people were even viewing the body and all that, the mornings of burials, the first hours are usually like intense. Then later on during the day, it's a bit calm. Then now when you're burying again, the emotions go high. So it's usually high, a bit calm, then high. Then after, now you have the grief to handle. So yeah, I get consecutive calls, and they were overwhelming me. So even when everything was going on, I was outside. And I was just taking this call and taking this calls and taking this calls. And funny thing is, I'd already delegated the duties. Like, everything was in place. Just that the fact that I wasn't around couldn't sit right with this particular man. And I broke down into tears, and the burial till now, it remains vague, the first part of it, until the point it got to where we were now burying now my cousin. When the casket goes down, that's when I switched off my phone to finish up with the burying ceremony, then now go back to whatever thing was happening. And I finished, and at that time, by the way, before burying my cousin, I had said I'm not going back to that place. I had already clocked that I'm not going back. And I said I'm going to render my resignation tomorrow. no, tomorrow being Saturday. Okay, since we were buying on Friday. So I went on with the burial. Eventually it switched on my phone, but I went on with the burial, and on Saturday I clocked in work and I wrote down my resignation letter saying I'm out of this place. Over and out, deuces. And tell me why when I got home, the distance between Westlands and my place on a Saturday is literally 20 minutes. There's no traffic on Saturday and you're against traffic because people are coming on to town and this sides and you're against traffic. When I got home, immediately I placed my bag on the chair. My cousin forwards me a message. How my cousin by the way forwards me this message is because at some point I called with her phone. I think my phone was out, it's either airtime or whatever. So my cousin gets a text and she forwards it to me. And the text said, Jambi, do not come back again. Something with that, I can't remember it clearly. My previous phone had that message, but now I don't have it anymore. And don't come tomorrow, tell her not to come, and yada yada. I'm like, okay, cool. And my cousin said, it's okay. In fact, we were very overwhelmed there. And I just laughed. I'm like, how did this man know that I was going to render my resignation on Monday? And for me to agree to render my resignation on Monday, it's because Monday is a formal working day and you can't render it past working hours. So me, I'm following the Kenyan law. Me, I'm fully guided by the Kenyan law. But then sometimes you wonder if all these laws have been written down and we have all these statutes and bills, why are we not following them? Why are we assuming that whatever was written down is just vague and nonsensical? It doesn't make sense. Even the state of the nation, it doesn't make sense that we are bound by this law. We are bound by this law. Why are we not following it to the core? And all these things that have been written down and have been passed. Is this stories are but this is not this is not something that it was just written down for the purpose of it. It's not a joke. It's something that's supposed to bind us. And if we are going against it, then someone needs to be eligible for that. Because what's the purpose of writing down and having all these bills passed if you're not putting it into work? Yeah, so Monday is here. Of course, the girl didn't make it to Monday because she was fired on Saturday. And I just saw the message. I'm like, okay, cool. Then he said, for you to be paid whatever money that we owe you, you need to return the uniform that you were given. So this uniform is not a uniform per se. They had customized suits for everyone, and I just had one suit for them, from them rather, which was green in color, and a t-shirt for Fridays. And I packed the things and I took them on Monday, and I gave them to the cleaner who used to clean there, and I told him I have sent over the things that you required. I need my money. And I kept on calling. During that week, I kept on calling. I kept on calling. I just kept on calling and texting and calling and texting. Till one day I realized that unajiongelesha, you're talking to yourself. It's giving a very toxic relationship, but not with your partner. This is your former boss, right? And I kept on asking for my money and just requesting for it because then I was really in dire need of like finances, and this came so abruptly. And also that's a lot of money. It was a lot of money. It was a lot of money, let it be known. By then it was a lot of money that would have made sense. But then my mom, shout out to mom by the way, she said, Chambi, if this money was meant to impact you, it would have. So you need to accept the fact that it's not meant to impact you in any way. And maybe this is a season for you to rest, to relax. You've been on the move for quite a long time. You've been just working and working and working and working. And if someone has decided to take advantage of you, just leave it to God. And at that time I asked her, what do you mean leave it to God? I can't leave it to God because this is something that we need to justify on here. This is not a heavenly matter, mom. I was so angry. And I was even asking my mom, if you're talking about God, then why is God allowing this to happen? He's like, probably God wanted you to leave that place. But then even all of us didn't listen to that decision that God had already made. We sat through it because maybe usually think the purpose of life is that monetary thing. And sometimes maybe it's not. Sometimes your purpose is even God will grant you the finances, granted, everything granted, the love granted. But sometimes there's a fulfilled life that beats all these things that we're equating to purpose. That for me to be impactful, I have to be this type of way. For me to be in love, I have to be no. Sometimes your purpose is even bigger than all that. Like sometimes in the in the heavenly world, all that has been cancelled. Like your purpose maybe is not there. You're busy maybe fighting for a salary that you think is life changing, and God has a greater deal out of you. Maybe you're meant to be working in the UN. You're meant to be outside there making impact, touching the world with your story, things like those, and then you're here. Then I just had to accept, and now I never got paid, by the way. My money ilienda hivyo, and now I was starting grieving. Now my career got to admission now. Remember that was my year of admission to the bar, and if you'd have told me that 2 months ago, because I got admitted in November, I got fired in September. So in a month, I was grieving. But my admission day gave me so much fulfillment. It gave me so much fulfillment that I even forgot once upon a time. I was crying for my money. I was crying because I was in a toxic space. And even so, I feel as if that was just an affirmation from God that sometimes the things that are supposed to make you happy are the ones that you, Jambi, wewe ndio umefanyia kazi. You're the one who's put in the effort in that. In education, as much as it's the parents paying and all that, I'm the one who's put in effort to study, you see. So maybe fulfillment is not out of someone else coming to rip you away. It's out of you saying, I did this by myself. Even if you have a support system, the motive or the goal is, I did this by myself. It's not whatever these people want to come and rip you away, because that one made me doubt myself as a lawyer. Like doubt, I was like, or I wasn't meant to be a lawyer. And you know, if I tell you the constitution says this, the same thing as I'll keep on making reference to the government because we are living in a bad state and we have to mention these things. So if you mention someone, this is what the constitution says, and they counter it, you're the one who will seem dumb, you see. Or if someone goes contrary to that, you're like, oh, probably I don't know the constitution enough, you see. So this was the same thing. This man, everything that I used to mention, he used to counter it. And it gets to your character, you're like, oh, maybe I'm not enough. But then I was never meant to be enough in his eyes. And that's also something I did accept so quickly that, oh, I was seeking validation from someone who even doesn't understand the law. Because if you do understand the law, you do understand this is a live day. And whoever is in a toxic workplace, I don't know how to navigate it. I don't know what I can tell you, but maybe it gets better, and I hope that's enough. And just after that, I just navigated again, stayed unemployed for quite a long time. Then that's when I realized, oh, you're a humanitarian lawyer. Get into this volunteering space. And I got into this volunteering space, and it gave me such fulfillment in life. I don't think I've ever felt fulfilled as I was. And even till now, the urge to help people in the humanitarian way, I think that's God's purpose for me, of which I'm not yet sure, you see. So after that, my career, it went on well, then got into another season of unemployment again because I made a wrong move, which I shouldn't have. You see, this thing that I was telling you before, when you see a bag, you're excited about that bag, or you're excited to unwrap that phone, or even wear that new shirt that you bought. Sometimes imagine you don't need to get that excited, or rather, sometimes the shirt isn't for you. You wouldn't have bought a white shirt, you'd have taken a black one instead. And that's a move that I made sometime last year.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. That's part 2 of Gachambi's story. And honestly, I'm just like blown away by her courage, right? There's just so much to sit with. But I'm going to share 2 key takeaways that really stood out with me. Number 1, when she talks about failure not being the opposite of success, and it's part of the story. And this is when she was talking about appreciating the 4 units that she did pass, and also just remembering who she was before the trauma. I found that to be super powerful, and just like a reminder that failure it's not a verdict, right? It's feedback. Sometimes it's even the thing that sharpens you for your purpose, but it's not like a verdict. It's not a death sentence, right? Also, as much as it was heavy, when she talks about workplace abuse, that really sat with me, especially the power it takes to break the silence, right? So her honesty about sexual harassment in the legal world is not just like her being vulnerable and open with us, which I appreciate. I think it's super necessary. I mean, she even says it herself. She talks about how those stories never see the light of day, but like by sharing hers, she gives you and I and other women permission to just name what has happened to us and to know that like you're not imagining it. It happened and you're not alone. I just feel like this story or this part of her story really just speaks to this greater purpose that we have and timing looking nothing like what we imagine. And sometimes it looks like the firing, it looks like the delay, it looks like the disappointment, but all of that really is protection. Part 3 is going to be out next week. But before we get there, I want to know what you've connected with so far in her story. Drop it in the comment section. You know, when I sing, it's because I'm in a good mood. However, if you have listened to a story and you want to share your story as well, in the show notes, you can fill in our storyteller form and one of our correspondents is going to get back to you. Remember to subscribe wherever you're listening to this on so you do not miss out on any of our 4 weekly shows. Sign up for our newsletter on our website, legallycluelessafrica.com. And thank you so much for listening to this episode to the very end. As usual, you know that I think that you have every single thing that it takes to heal. That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.